and welcome to this meeting of the Governance and Risk Committee of West Lothian Council. I am Councillor Damien Doran-Timson, Chair of this committee. This meeting is being broadcast live and a recording will be made available afterwards through the Council's website. I am being assisted today by Leslie Montague, Governance Manager, and colleagues from Committee Services and IT. Attendees may be joining the meeting from another location. Everything said while microphones are live will be broadcast and recorded. Members are asked to be polite, respectful and patient, as always at this committee. There is more information, including a privacy statement about meeting arrangements, on the Council's website. An agenda has been published showing the business for today's meeting. I will introduce each item and the Council officer will speak briefly about their report before members may ask questions, have a discussion and make any decisions that are required. Councillors may leave the meeting from time to time where they have declared interest that prevent them from taking part. There will be a pause while that happens and they'll be invited back in for the next item of business. If the meeting is a long one, then it may be adjourned temporarily for a meal or comfort break. I will say if that is going to happen. So we move on to item 1, and do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have an apology today from Councillor Harry Cartmill, and if I can also confirm that we have one officer online today, Sarah Kelly.
And thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? Don't see any. The order of business is as is in the agenda, with all items being heard. And for item 19, the intention is to take that paper in private session. Do members agree with that decision? I see none heads. Thank you very much. Members, can they confirm the draft minutes of the meeting of the Governance and Risk Committee held back in September last year? Thank you. We move on to item 5, which is high risks, and I will ask Stuart Saunders to speak to that. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the Council's high risks. All risks are assessed for impact and likelihood using a 5x5 risk matrix, and those with a current risk score of 12 or more are considered to be high risks. The Council has 12 high risks in total, 2 less than reported to the Committee in September. The operational services risk, failure of waste disposal contractor, and the social policy risk, insufficient availability of care home beds, were both previously high risks but have now been assessed as medium. Full details for each of the 12 high risks are set out in Appendix 1, and Appendix 2 sets out the Council's standard risk assessment methodology. Chair, the Committee is asked to review the Council's high risks, and I'd be happy to take any questions, as would the other officers present.
Stuart, thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions? Councillor Pauline Orr.
Thanks, Chair. First question is on page 5, which is SPCF 004. I've got a few wee questions, but I'll try and keep them brief, Stuart.
Thank you, Pauline.
This is the one on reliance of external placements.
Yes, Pauline, your questions?
Okay. Does West Lothian Council accept placements from other authorities at all? And does West Lothian Council need to place kids in other authorities, and how does this affect the cost and the current gap?
Thank you, Pauline. I'll look for Robin to come in on that.
Chair, I must apologise. I didn't quite catch the question. Could I ask the member to repeat it again? My apologies.
Yep. Does West Lothian Council accept placements from other authorities? Or do we need to place people in other authorities because of lack of space? And how does that affect the cost and the current gap that we're facing just now?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the member for repeating the question. In relation to identifying the most appropriate placement for an individual child, it comes down to their individual needs and the resource that is best identified to meet those needs. On occasions, that does mean that we will be placing children out with the local authority area, depending upon their needs or indeed the risks associated with meeting those needs. There are I'm not aware of the numbers that are placed within the West Lothian area, although that will be available within the service for individuals out with or have an address out with West Lothian. But I can confirm that there is a requirement for us to place individual children depending upon need.
Thank you, Robin. Pauline?
Thank you for that. The next question is on page 14, which is EH006, Food Safety and Public Health. I think I may have asked this before, or certainly in respect of one of the other challenges we face, but what are the challenges to recruitment in this particular area?
Ask Craig Smith to come in there. Craig.
Thank you, Chair. The challenges for recruitment continue in terms of having enough people coming into the profession, whether it's environmental health or trading standards at this time. It's a national problem that the professions continue to face. In terms of West Lothian's approach to it, we've been doing a lot of our own internal development of staff to try and mitigate against this. But the problem does continue at this time.
Thank you, Craig. Pauline, follow up on that?
That's great. It's good to hear that you're trying to work around that and do some internal training to encourage the gaps to be filled. So that's quite positive news. The next one is page 17. Actually, that's more of a comment, so I'll leave that one to page 18, which is AD004, Mainstream Schools.
Pauline, can I just come in on this one? We have later on in the paper that service presenting to us, so maybe we could save that question for item 14 on the agenda, because that's a specific item we have on the paper today. So maybe any questions there would be more relevant for that item, if you can save that for then, if that's okay with you.
Yep, that's
Thanks, Pauline.
That's me done then.
Thank you, Pauline. Councillor Logue? Sorry, Danny, you're taking your mic off.
I'd like to ask Robin if some of the external placements was mentioned in page 14. Is it not true that some areas of external placements are suitable in certain environments for special conditions or special reasons why in one location, and it would be uneconomical to try and have all the kind of services and requirements for a particular special condition or foster children to go to in one location. So it's usually divvied up between local authorities that they might specialise in certain areas.
Robin, back to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, as I noted in my previous response, ultimately it relates to the individual needs of a child and where they are best met. There are some very specialist conditions or very specialist arrangements that an individual may require, and for that reason they may be located out with the West Lothian area and dealing with larger numbers of individuals than would be required for the West Lothian area.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Danny. Councillor Linda Kenner.
Thank you, Chair. It's page 3, SP CC005, the increased expenditure. It's just a quick question, really. On the listed, at the end of that report, you talk about an agreed transition policy in place to support those moving from children in social work into adult social work services. Could you maybe expand on that, what the transition policy is? Because it would be interesting to know about this, but we don't know everything about the services. And another part of the question is, it's the only paper that doesn't have linked and risk actions at the end, telling us what's going to happen and dates and targets and the progress on it. That's that one.
Linda, thank you very much. I'll ask Robin again to come in on that, but also Stuart, I don't know if you want to come in first with regards to the last part of the question about the linked and risk actions, if that's okay, Robin. Thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, in regards to risk actions, the protocol is any external audit or internal audit recommendations will be included in IdeaGen as risk actions and attached to the relevant risk. So if there's no actions currently linked to the risk present, that just means that there's no outstanding risk actions. They've been completed.
Okay.
Stuart, thank you very much. And Robin, can I come back to you for the first part of the question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. In relation to the context of the risk and the transitions policy that's noted, it's to provide a clear line of sight of those individuals that are being supported within our children's service area that are likely and have an identified requirement to have ongoing care and support needs when they transfer into our adult services area. So within the context of this risk and being mindful that it's in and around expenditure associated with the budget is by being clear about what the requirements of those individuals are and what impact that will have in forecasting or indeed identifying the required level of budget to meet their needs moving forward.
Robin, thank you.
Could I ask Robin if we have a figure of how many clients are waiting on their packages? Is there any outstanding packages? A number for it? If you're doing your care and support packages, do we have a list of outstanding packages that have not been delivered yet?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to our care at home provision is what I think has been referred to.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And in relation to the numbers of packages of care where people have been assessed as having a care requirement, those are monitored very closely, and I have oversight of that on a fortnightly basis to identify what we term unmet need in relation to the provision of care at home. And yes, we are aware of how many individuals there are who have no care in place whilst whilst that is being identified. It's actually at a very low level and has been retained at a very low level now for quite some number of months. Which obviously ties into this risk as well, because of the availability that we currently have and the very low numbers of unmet need.
Thank you, Linda.
Robin, does this impact on any packages of people who are waiting in hospital? Be released from hospital to home care? Do you have anything to say on that?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to those individuals who are in hospital and require care to be discharged home, those are monitored and reported on a daily basis. There is also twice weekly senior oversight in relation to those individuals. Again, we are experiencing very low waits in relation to individuals who have been delayed in hospital awaiting a package of care, and that has been the case now for quite some time.
Thanks for that. The other question I have is on, again, it's comments.
No comments. Members happy to take on board the recommendation on item 5. Thank you. We move to item 6, management of health and safety, and ask Kim Hardy to speak to that. Kim.
Thank you, Chair. This paper is a standing report that provides the committee with an overview of recent health and safety information and activity across all services. Committee are requested to note the content of the report. Section D2 provides information on key actions taken corporately and within services in relation to the management and monitoring of health and safety risks and actions. Section D3 provides information on the outcomes of recent activity of the Health and Safety Executive. This includes the completion of 6 inspections relating to the requirements to manage asbestos in non-domestic premises and a number of inquiries made in relation to RIDDOR reportable incidents made. The details of the outcomes are contained within the report. Section D4 provides information on the recorded incidents reported to the Health and Safety Executive under our statutory obligations. These incidents have been investigated, remedial actions identified, and these have either been implemented or are in the process of being implemented. These incidents have also been considered by the corporate management team. We are continuing to see an upward trend in the number of reportable incidents to the Health and Safety Executive. However, there is no specific issue that is contributing overall in numbers of the incidents that are required to be reported at this period of time. Appendix 1 to the report provides a breakdown of incidents recorded in our online safety management system, SPHERA, details of employers' liability claims settled in this reporting period, and a summary of the RIDDOR reportable incident made. The information contained within this report is shared on a monthly basis with service management teams, the corporate management team, and also through a number of forums with trade union colleagues for consideration and action as required. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions. There are also representatives here from services for any service-specific points that the committee may wish to make.
Kim, thank you very much for that report. Can I ask members, do we have any questions for either Kim or members of the committee? Councillor Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. It's a kind of general question that goes over a couple of the tables that we're looking at in respect of all incidents and verbal incidents in education. So firstly, it's good to see that there's been a decrease in the number of incidents. That's what we want to see. So that's a huge progress. But what I'd also like to ask, just for clarity, is are there any the incidents that are reported, are a number of them like repeated incidents, like the same person repeatedly being reported for different incidents? Does that make sense? So rather than it's like 1,646 separate perpetrators or whatever, it might only be 1,000 perpetrators because some of them are consistently being reported.
Thank you, Pauline and Lisa Maria. Without going into too much that we're going to cover in item 14 anyway, but yeah, if you take that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There will be repeated incidents from some children or young people, and that, I suppose, is the purpose of the young person's incident form that we're encouraging our staff to use, because we can use the information that comes through that reporting to make sure that triggers are identified, risk assessments are put in place, and both the children, the young people, and indeed the staff are given the support that they need. So there will be an element of a repeat in terms of some of those numbers involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa Marie. And finally, just another question. When we are getting people who are consistently causing these situations and whatever, at what point is exclusion from school considered? You know, what is the process to get to that stage, and how long on average can it take? Because I'm thinking of the safety of the victim here, and it's something like that.
Lisa Maria.
Thank you, Chair. I think each individual situation and young person's story will be very bespoke, so there won't be a set number on a number of occasions or a number of incidents. Each incident is thoroughly investigated because, of course, there might be repeated incidents, but they could be towards different people, different situations. So it'd be very difficult for me to put a number on it. There are a number of measures and mitigations in place prior to exclusion, and so the service works really closely with their staff in settings to make sure that the supports are robust and they are responsive to the needs of each young person. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Any further questions, Pauline?
Nothing.
Right. Thank you very much. Linda, question for yourself?
Thanks. On page 2, at the bottom, assault by persons, I mean, that is a significant drop as well. Can you tell me, I just really want to know, is that over all the services or just within one service?
Kim, plus your thumb.
Thank you, Chair. So the table on page 2 is actually a cumulative figure for all of our services rather than an individual service.
Is there any one service that contributes most to this figure?
In terms of physical and verbal assault, obviously those are broken down by service within the report. So an assault by a person would include either physical or verbal assault.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, Linda?
See it now. No.
Thank you very much. Do members have any other questions? Do we have any comments? Members happy to take on board the recommendations on item 6. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 7, which is progress on governance issues, and Leslie Montague will speak to this. Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. This committee approves an annual governance statement for inclusion in the Council's accounts. The annual governance statement is informed by the review of the system of internal control, annual compliance statements, the updated local code of corporate governance, previous year's external audit report and work carried out to progress governance issues identified in previous year's reporting. The statement each year identifies new significant governance issues to be addressed and progressed in the following reporting year. This report provides committee with a note of progress made to date in relation to the governance issues identified in the annual governance statement for 2024-25 as detailed at Appendix 1. The Code of Corporate Governance requires a regular review of significant corporate governance documents, policies and procedure. Appendix 2 has a list of those, identifying when they are intended to be completed with a note of the present position and the work still required. Progress will be monitored through the Corporate Governance Board and reported to committee in June 2026. Progress will also be reflected in the annual governance compliance statements and the annual governance statement for 2025-26. Consideration of the governance issues covered by this report will assist in ensuring compliance with the principles of the local code of corporate governance and will inform the annual governance statement. It will also assist in maintaining progress towards the meeting of the performance indicators in the corporate governance strategy. The committee is asked to agree the recommendations. Your representatives are available from across services to take questions. Thank you.
Leslie, thank you very much for that report. Do members have any questions? Linda Kenneth, you're first.
Okay, thank you. It's actually, Leslie, on page 8, and it's regarding the Scottish Local Authority Remuneration SLARC. And you've got ongoing, and I just really want to know what points are ongoing, because it was pretty much detailed about what would happen and how it would happen, when it would happen, and under the impression that that would be it complete once it's done.
Thank you, Chair. So a number of the recommendations were approved for taking forward, and they related to the elected member remuneration, which the Council has implemented when the relevant legislation was made. There are a number of the 22 recommendations outstanding that are being considered currently by third parties, and the Council is involved in terms of consultation in respect of those matters, and a number of the matters are being considered by COSLA at the present time and will be brought forward for implementation by the Council when that is possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Linda?
No.
Pauline, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of very brief ones. First one is on page 15.29, the PVGs. And I was just interested to know if, since the changes were put in place, have there been any issues or concerns raised that you've needed to look at?
Thank you, Pauline. And I don't know if Stuart Saunders wants to come in on the EVG query, or do you have any comments on that?
Is it a smooth transition, in other words, or?
Thank you, Chair. It's not something that I have information to hand, but something that I'm happy to share with the committee.
Understand, Stuart, yeah.
Fair enough, thank you. And the final question is on page 17, item 33. Is the risk management policy, the target was October 25, revised date 31st March 26. I just wondered what had caused the delays on that one.
And Stuart, back to you.
Fine to myself, yes. Just due to a number of staffing vacancies and restructuring within the unit, workload was prioritised in different areas, but the aim is to have that completed by the 31st of March in the upcoming months, along with a review of some other policies, including business continuity as well. So there's a number of policies that are due to be done, and they will be completed before the 31st of March.
Thank you,
Stuart, for that. Thank you. That's me.
Thank you, Pauline. A question for me, and Leslie, this is for yourself, although the Chief Executive may wish to comment as well on his staff. Well, on Appendix 2, with regards to the targets, are we satisfied that the targets are both realistic and will be met by officers?
Thank you, Chair. So this list is prepared in terms of each administrative term. It is monitored progress at the Corporate Governance Board. It is also reported in terms of performance indicators to CP&R PGSP annually for update, and biannually to this committee for progress to be monitored and reviewed and scrutinised. Where there is a legitimate change in the timescale for a matter being progressed and completed, that is noted, and we ensure that there is compliance is monitored in the administrative term.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Leslie. Do we have any further questions? Linda.
Just note page 14, number 11, corporate procurement procedures. Revisions to procurement procedures have been prepared. It is proposed to present these to EMT. The target was October 25. Where are we with that?
Thank you for the very good question, Linda. And I'm looking around the room for Officer Speaker Elaine Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I can get that information to the committee.
That'd be welcome. Thank you very much, Linda. We'll get that.
Thank you.
To all members. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. Do we have any further questions? Any comments? Members happy to bring forward the two recommendations on item 7. Thank you. We now move to the management of health and safety risks, which is on a report and presentation, and this will be by David Bird.
Thanks, Chair. Here today to discuss and update the committee on the approach adopted for finance and property services and the management of health and safety risks. Right. In common with all services, we have an approach to health and safety which is robust. Finance and property services made up of a number of different services from the council, as we'll come on to in a wee minute. The management of health and safety is enshrined in all the policies and procedures and activities of the services thereafter. We have identified and review constantly our health and safety risks as a service. We also record our incidents, and as part of that we then review our risk assessments. So a robust approach taken throughout that. In finance and property services, as I'm sure you're all aware, there's 5 component services: anti-poverty service, audit and risk and counter fraud, financial management, property services and revenues. Each unit will have its own distinct element and approach to these risks, but they do come together as a senior management team to review them collectively. We make use of the Council's IdeaGen performance system to help us notify and take note of these risks and risk assess them. Each risk is scored on the basis of impact and likelihood in common with the Council's standard procedures for these things, and we use the standard matrix for doing so. We include details of control measures, mitigation risk actions and such likes, all just designed to ensure that we're taking a robust and continuously improving approach to how we address these things. As I stated, these are reviewed monthly as a standing item on our SMT agenda. And indeed, we will always look at our high risks, but we'll also go through any where there's been changes or any mitigating actions which have to be addressed through incidents which have occurred. So that also goes through, and there's quite a detailed discussion, anything as is required, as you would expect. In addition to this, the services has a health and safety committee with our trade union colleagues, and these things are also discussed within that forum, and we take any advice or a discussion with our colleagues to see if there's anything we have to take account of that hasn't perhaps been captured. In terms of our risks, you'll see on the screen 4 or 5 which are low risks. And property, quite given the nature of our job, dominates an awful lot of the health and safety risks. But these are the ones that particularly look at the service, and we've notified these 5 risks and identified these as ones which are worthy of consideration here. Failure to engage contractors. I mean, it's easier in a lot of ways for the council to engage its own staff and train our own staff, but the failure to engage and control contractors is a key risk for the council. We have to be very much aware and engaged in how we react to our contractors and how we select our contractors, and monitor their performance to ensure that that is properly accounted for. Obviously, contractors, by dint of being instructed by us, almost become an arm of the council, so we have to be very aware of that, and there's an ongoing process of doing that through contractor meetings as well as monitoring works. Lone working is obviously very important. That's for our own staff. We have devices which are used as appropriate for staff in lone working situations, and that is quite closely monitored to make sure staff are using the devices, activating them, and can call upon them and know how to call upon them should they're required. And it's a very useful tool, and very important that we do that for our own staff. We also monitor accidents and injuries relating from building-related defects within our operational buildings. Again, a property-related risk particularly, as is the lower, as in incidents relating to lifting equipment. RAC has been a very topical risk within the council. We are moving towards the end of our RAC programme in terms of operational properties, and our house and colleagues again are making good progress in terms of their risks, but we'll come on and maybe discuss some of that in a report later in the agenda. But again, that has been very robustly risk assessed and dealt with as part of that, and I think our approach has been recognised as such. In terms of incidents and mitigating actions, you'll note the numbers there, 221 since 2020. We would like there to be no incidents, but that's not realistic. 81 in the last year, again, is low in terms of incidents across the council, but every incident is properly investigated in terms of IdeaGen, and we will seek to learn from any incident as it happens, and that's really a key thing as we go forward. You learn from mistakes or even from near misses, and it's important that we do that as we kind of continue to progress. Every day's a school day, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. In terms of our health and safety risk assessments, there's 75 in place across all activities within finance and property services. As I've discussed, these are assessed, and we look to identify hazards and implement measures to mitigate risk. All assessments are annually reviewed by suitable staff and then taken back up to their management teams, to the SMT. And I'm happy to take any questions on that, Chair. That, and obviously in relation to the report that was submitted as well.
David, thank you very much for the report and the presentation. Do we have any questions from members? Pauline, I see you're in first.
Yep, just the one wee question, I think, and that is on page 5 to the wee table that's included in D3. There's been an increase over the last couple of years in near misses, no injuries, and verbal incidents in particular. Can I ask if we've any idea why these incidents are increasing. I'm asking that because more and more people are working from home quite a lot. So it would be interesting to know if the majority of these incidents are from operational services, so the likes of your roads, housing, waste, etc., because they're the staff that are predominantly front-facing, if you like, and what mitigations are being considered to try and support these. Thank you, David.
The incidents noted there relating directly to finance and property services. So our staff are primarily based in the Civic and the James Walker Partnership Centre in Bathgate, although we do have some other staff out in other partnership centres. So they primarily relate to that. Many of the near misses will relate to just run-of-the-mill things where we have just general accidents that happen in office, and across the number of staff I've got and across the number of these people are in the staff, I think they're thereabouts. It looks quite a large increase, certainly in terms of the numbers there, but perhaps rather than shoot from the hip, can I perhaps do a wee bit of investigation and come back in that, Chair? I don't think there's a particularly significant rise in terms of overall things in terms of the council, but rather than just do that, I can perhaps come back.
David, that'd be welcomed if it's in a timely manner. If you get some figures back to all members here, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Pauline?
I agree. That would be great, and that's all that I had. David was just a...
Thank you, Pauline. Linda.
Thank you. David, on page 2, risk WLC 038, it's just you say within the content that the contractors are open to inspections. Really, who carries out the inspections? Bearing in mind, I'm thinking about staffing levels and lack of staff. So is it the service that the contractors are working under, or is it finance and property services?
This would primarily be property services staff, and we would assess the works. The process begins when we appoint contractors, that we ensure that they have proper standards in place to start with, and we assess that via our procurement processes. But thereafter, individual jobs that go out that the contractors assess, we would scope the job properly so the contractor can then risk assess that job and carry it out safely. We will then do periodic inspections of how the work has been carried out. There's also people on site in many of the buildings who can report anything that's going wrong as well. But we do definitely, from property staff, I can't say we assess every job, obviously, there's thousands of jobs, but we do carry out a selection of inspections across all our contractors to make sure it's carried out. We also get paperwork back from our contractors stating what works have been carried out and such likes, which also allows us to assess that and check that too, to make sure it's all been done in accordance with how we would like.
Right. The reason I'm asking is we've all heard of contractors coming on, more so at housing when they bring in external contractors to do a piece of work, and there doesn't seem to be that much monitoring going on, but problems do arise. And when they do arise, it's very difficult for the tenants or the owners of the homes to find out exactly who. A typical example is something going wrong and they have to make an insurance claim and they're told, no, it's not the council, it's a contractor. And that to me is very, very... if it's not explained fully at the beginning, when the contractor comes online, it's very confusing for our tenants.
I'm not sure about housing examples in particular, Chair, but what I can say is in relation to commercial property tenants, what we do require them to do is claim their own contents insurance, perhaps, if there's been something damaged there, because that's the route for that, and then their contents insurer will then come back to the council seeking to redress or recover their costs if they believe that's appropriate. So there is a mechanism for that, just like any insurance, whereby you would claim your own insurance first. So whether that's the same for housing, I couldn't quite say, but certainly in terms of the property commercial tenants, that's the case.
Thank you for that, David. Any further questions on that?
No.
Danny, yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask about the page 2, failure to effectively manage asbestos due to fly tipping, etc. I mean, how can that possibly monitor that? Because it's a big area of land and it can go anywhere. I mean, because we had incidents with the travellers where they just dumped asbestos into wooded areas and places like that. But it's people that are doing contract work privately that will dump stuff rather than pay for it to be.
Yeah, in terms of that, as you say, fly tipping is very hard to monitor. It's such a large area we work in, so you're not quite sure who things will be done. But if there's an instance where fly tipping occurs, then our colleagues in operational services would notify the statutory compliance team within property. We would work with them to identify if there is actual asbestos there, and then mobilise any contractors if it was required to dispose of any fly tipping in a safe manner. Working together with that. And obviously I understand our colleagues in operational services are trained to look out for asbestos. People are trying to tip that in any of our domestic recycling centres. So our staff are trained to deal with that and understand that and then react. But as well as my own staff, who are asbestos experts, we have contractors on tap who we can bring in to remove asbestos if it is discovered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for that, David. Do we have any further questions? Don't see any comments. Any either committee members happy to take on board the recommendation on item 8. Thank you very much. We move to item 9, which is within social policy and business continuity planning, a report and presentation. And Robin Allen, back to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this presentation and accompanying report is to provide committee members with detail on the Social Policy Business Continuity Plan. Members will be aware that social policy delivers a range of social work and social care services for the people of West Lothian, from pre-birth through to palliative and end-of-life care. The function of the service is to ensure people are protected and have access to the care and support services that meet their needs. The core service areas are community care services for adults and older people, children and family services, and justice services. They are delivered in a range of settings, including residential, office-based, and individuals' homes. The presentation will outline the purpose of the business continuity plan, governance arrangements, and the key social policy business continuity themes. Business continuity planning is an integral component of the Council's risk management strategy. The service approach is closely aligned with the strategy to ensure there are robust arrangements in place to sustain critical functions during periods that challenge usual service delivery. The Social Policy BCP is maintained on the Council's corporate risk management system and details how the service will continue to deliver services in the event of an incident which disrupts internal operations. Members will be familiar with the governance arrangements and corporate framework that provide oversight of the business continuity planning. Social policy work in close partnership with key officers to ensure the governance and risk board have the necessary information to exercise its oversight arrangements. This includes the use of agreed plan templates. The Head of Social Policy is the chair of the Services BCP team, with the plan detailing the roles and responsibilities of other key individuals. This includes links with the Corporate Risk Management and Business Continuity team as required. The service undertake regular reviews of the BCP to ensure service categorisations are appropriately defined. Key events that could significantly impact on service delivery are identified and recovery actions detailed. Key threats identified within the Social Policy Business Continuity Plan are outlined in the slide before you, those being ranging from loss of IT through to operational property, staff, power outages, severe weather, or indeed loss of key supplier or provider, and obviously learning we've taken from the pandemic. Within the categorisation of activities, social policy follow the same approach as other service areas in terms of identifying WALC1 categories through to WALC3 categories. The majority of social policy services are identified as WLC1, 13 in total, that being those that are of critical requirements in terms of potential loss of life or limb to customers. The service do not have any WLC 3 activities, with the remaining 7 categorised as WLC2. The next slides detail what those WLC1 activities and WLC2 activities are. Chair, it would not be my intention to go through the list. However, that you will note that it details services that support across adults, older people, and indeed children's services and justice. These services provide care and support to individuals within a range of settings, as noted earlier in the presentation, both within their own homes and in residential settings. In terms of our WLC2 activities, these are detailed in the list before you, and really more in relation to services such as daycare, or indeed our occupational therapy services and the provision of equipment, or indeed where services are focused on reviewing the requirements of individuals. Chair, in summary, I would like to provide assurance that there is robust and proactive business continuity processes in place to support the delivery of services within social policy in the event of them becoming disrupted. The service BCP is reviewed on a regular basis within the senior management team, and it forms part of the services risk management strategy. Chair, happy to take any questions.
Robin, thank you very much for the presentation and the report. Do we have any questions? Cindy, just yet one from me, Robin. If I take you to 3.6 on page 4 in the paper, loss of key supplier or provider. With regards to both care at home and residential care, obviously as costs are rising for employers these days, what is the belief that we're at risk, certainly from a provider in both those situations, that we won't have much notice of someone withdrawing from the market?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the failure of a commissioned provider, we have a specific risk identified within our risk management overview for that very matter. There are a range of contracted supplier monitoring arrangements that are in place across all our commissioned providers. This is probably most significant within adults and older people services. There is also identified link officers within the contracts team that maintain regular contact with our commissioned providers to ensure that we have regular feedback in relation to any particular risks associated with their service delivery, and that also including financial risk. There is also regular monitoring and reporting of those risks, both within the PDSP and the Council Executive, with that activity being overseen by the Contracts Advisory Group within the service.
Okay, Robin, thank you very much for that. Do we have any further questions? Don't see any comments. Either. Robin, once again, thank you for the report and presentation, and members happy to take on board the recommendation on item 9. Thank you. We move to item 10, which is non-service risks, and I'll pass back to Stuart Saunders. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. The vast majority of the risks in IdeaGen, the Council's risk management system, are owned by a head of service, and these are risks which are either specific to a service or held by the service on behalf of the Council as a whole. However, there are a small number of risks that are not owned by a head of service, either because they sit within the Chief Executive's office or because it is considered that more appropriate for them to be owned at a more senior level. These are classed as non-service risks, and they are reported to this committee on an annual basis. There are currently 11 non-service risks in total. A summary is provided in the table in section D of the covering report, and full details for each risk are set out in Appendix 1. Chair of the committee is asked to review the Council's non-service risks. I'd be happy to take any questions, as would the other officers present.
Stuart, thank you very much for this. Do we have any questions? Linda?
Thank you.
Over to you.
It's on your WLC 045 pandemic. failure to maintain critical services.
Linda, could you just move the microphone a little bit closer to you? I'm just struggling to hear a little bit.
I'm choked. Sorry. It's WLC 045 pandemic. And it's really, I know we don't have a pandemic at the moment, but how close are we with the rise of this terrible flu and colds that's going about just now, which is affecting almost everybody? Would that affect the risk element to, I know it's not a pandemic, but it's almost the rise of a really serious illness and causing quite a lot of concern within nursing homes and hospitals and things like that. Stuart, it's just to see if it's considered pandemic worth and how close are we to it, to pandemic level.
Thank you, Linda. We don't have any members of the NHS here who may be better suited as well, but I'll ask the Chief Executive to come in on this one. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we meet weekly during the winter period from November through to the end of March to look at the various risks that are associated with the winter. And one of those is around potential spread of flu. I have to say that the data that's coming back indicates that it is less severe than was initially anticipated. So the number of hospital beds being taken up, the number of flu referrals is less than anticipated, but it's certainly something that we do keep under review. And we have the experience to draw on that we gained during the pandemic, and particularly those early days of the pandemic, should anything more significant present itself in the future.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have any further questions? Stuart, one from me. It's on page 8 of the appendix there, CO002, failure to maintain services. I know we do the business continuity planning and desktop exercises. Do we ever do any small-scale real-time exercises as well with regards to a loss of service or an impact to a service?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've done those exercises. We aim, as part of our risk management policy, to do a business continuity exercise every year, annually. And the previous exercise was exactly that, with our colleagues within IT services and with property services, where we done a real life situation and deactivated a server. And there was a loss of a system, and then followed the business continuity processes from that point onwards. And it was a very valuable exercise, much more valuable was the feedback than just a desktop exercise. The practicalities of doing it and the lessons learned were far greater than just a desktop alone.
Often the case. Stuart, thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. Do we have any further questions? I don't see any comments. Non-committee, happy to take on the recommendations at item 10. Thank you. We move to item 11, which is the insurance risks, and I'll hand over to Kenneth Howley. Kenneth.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to inform the committee of the current insurance arrangements the council has in place, and it's recommended that the committee notes the approach taken to managing the council's insurable risks. Very briefly, we are operating within a softening market. The vast majority of premiums are showing signs of stability, with the exception of the motor insurance lines of business, where this remains volatile. In terms of procurement of the insurance policies, the major policies are subject to a 5-yearly tendering exercise, with an annual renewal exercise undertaken to ensure best value is maintained throughout the life of the contract. All minor policies are managed through the council's insurance broker. In terms of financial management, the council operates an insurance fund where all premiums, expenditure and self-insured claims costs are managed through the fund. The fund is subject to 3-yearly actuarial revaluation. The most recent exercise was undertaken and concluded in November 2025. In the actuary's professional opinion, the fund is insufficient to meet the full liabilities perceived based on his calculations for data collated as at the 31st of March 2025. Within the report is also a summary of the most common claims that the Council experiences. Generally speaking, claims are relatively consistent across the board. Within liability, numbers have been stable. In terms of EL claims, these are slightly less consistent. However, numbers are lower than earlier years. Motor experience, the figures in the table will show that the numbers are reducing, although very slowly. We are continuing to work with the Fleet Services Department to make sure we can mitigate as much as possible in regards to the costs of motor vehicle repairs. And finally, in terms of the property claims experience, this is of particular concern in terms of financial value and impact on the insurance fund. Happy to take any questions, and colleagues are in the room who can answer on behalf of services.
Kenneth, thank you very much for the report, and I open this to any questions from members. Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for providing the report, Kenneth. It's very useful. Couple of questions for you. Page 5, on the table at the bottom, which is around the causation behind the claims contributing to public liability statistics. Can you explain the heading grass mowing? I'm not quite understanding how that would result in an insurance claim, so I'm quite interested in that.
Kenneth, yourself.
Thank you, no problem at all. Yes, grass mowing. Very occasionally, debris may be thrown from grass cutters during operation, and they may come into contact with public property, and these result in a claim.
Right. Okay. And the other one is around highways. It is increasing again. That's the third year that we've seen claims increase, although I do recognise that the highest claim was in 2022 with 266. Highways is a huge area as well. So do we have a breakdown of what these claims are, and what percentage of these claims actually refer to incidents with vehicles going over potholes? Do we know if we've got that information, please? I know that's a hot topic at the moment.
Kenneth.
Yeah, I don't have the complete breakdown to hand, but I'd be more than happy to break down the information and provide the committee with a more detailed explanation of those specific claims.
I think that'd be very useful. Thank you, Kenneth. Pauline.
Yeah, I agree, because what we need to be cognisant of as well is with West Lothian increasing in size, both by developments or housing, retail businesses. There's much more traffic on the roads, heavy traffic on the roads, and that leads to trouble with the state of the roads. So we need to be keeping on top of that. And the final question was on page 8. Again, just a wee bit of information around tenant behaviours, which resulted in a breach of the aggregate stop loss for the policy period. What's meant by that?
Kath.
Incidents, apologies, I'll start again. Within some of these incidents, there are claims that result of criminal behaviours, shall we say. We had at least 2 fires as a result of cannabis cultivations. Over and above, we had burst water pipes from a self-made irrigation system, resulting in flooding within several properties. And there were also a number of incidences of severe works regarding electrical wiring that was required to be done within council properties, again as the result of tampering.
That makes sense. Thank you very much for explaining that. Thank you, Kenna.
Any further questions, Pauline?
No, that's me. Thank
Do
you.
you have any questions for the members? Don't see any comments. Either committee have taken board the recommendation on item 11. Thank you very much. We move to item 12, which is managing risk within operational and domestic properties. And David Baird, we're back to yourself.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise the committee on the approach adopted by Finance and Property Services and Housing and Customer and Building Services to manage risks associated with the Council's duties relating to statutory compliance. Section D1 of the report provides a background to the Council's duties under statutory legislation, while Section D2 sets out the statutory compliance risks for both property and housing, and, as I've indicated in my earlier presentation, notes that these risks are evaluated using the Council's standard risk template, with suitable mitigations put in place to manage the risks accordingly. The risks are regularly reviewed by the teams within services which have a working knowledge of the areas of work covered. This allows their in-depth knowledge and experience to inform the risk assessments. In addition to this, risk is a standing item on service management team agendas, where further scrutiny is provided by managers across the service to allow a critical eye to be cast on risks and allow any overlap between teams within the services to be accounted for. Part of this, the Property Compliance Working Group and in a wider sense the Governance and Risk Board also assess the risk approach adopted by Property and Housing and Customer Building Services. The report submitted for consideration today has been through this governance process and is submitted for approval in line with the recommendations set out in Section B of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
David, once again, thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Linda.
Page 7, David. Oh, aye. Page 7, David, it's the paragraph before WLC 043, failure to effectively manage asbestos. In that, you're saying that there's several where pupils suffer injuries to hands from door issues. Is this not a wee bit reactive, your process, rather than being proactive to sort of manage the doors before the children injure their hands?
Yeah, it may seem that way, but what we do have is we have regular checks by council staff and contract staff who will assess doors to make sure they're in proper working order. Doors can become damaged in between those checks, and it's not always, it can simply be an accident at times as well. So it's not always possible, in other words, to try and stop these accidents, although we obviously take every step to do so. And where an incident does happen, we'll then come back and assess why it has happened to determine that our checks in place have been proportionate and if then further is required. So we will always assess every incident that happens to make sure we have actually learned any lessons that are there to learn.
Thanks for that, David. Do we have any further questions? See any comments? Any either? Thank you again for that, David. Members happy to take on board the recommendation on item 12. We move to item 13, which is the annual report for the health and safety risks. And Kim, back to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides the committee with an overview of the management of health and safety risks and measures in place to assist with the monitoring of these risks. It is requested that the committee note current measures in place. The identification and monitoring of health and safety related risks are part of the safety management measures in place to assist in aligning with the Health and Safety Executive's Plan, Do, Check, Act framework. As outlined in Section D2, a service-based approach is in place which allows risks to be identified and monitored in line with the risk profile of that service. Service-specific reports and presentations are presented to this committee as part of the current work plan. In addition to this, there is one corporate risk to ensure that an effective framework is in place to ensure that health and safety policies and procedures are prepared and deployed. Section D7 details how policies and procedures required are identified, the review process, and how monitoring of completion takes place. The identification of emerging risks and monitoring of existing risks will be informed through the range of actions as detailed in section D4 to D11, including the requirement for all services to have an annual health and safety plan outlining the actions the service will take both to meet the objectives of the health and safety policy and to manage their identified risks. The monitoring of health and safety performance is further monitored across all services, and section D9 provides further details on how this is currently managed. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions, and there are officers present from First Services for any service-specific points the committee would wish to raise.
Kim, thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions? Kim, from myself, I understand the reasoning why we have 2 corporate procedures that are currently overdue, and that's both pressures on the service and having to deal with other things. Will they be brought forward early into the next year, or will they just be fitted in when? Because obviously you'll have a plan throughout the year anyway. So will it result in being moved around, or will the overdue items be brought forward in the year, or will they just be fitted in when you have some time within the year to do it?
Thank you, Chair. Currently, we have planned those in as part of our 26-27 procedure to be carried over from this year. However, at the moment, one of the health and safety advisors has managed to allocate some of his time. So the corporate contractor procedure work has actually started this week. That is quite a significant piece of work for the team, given the risks associated with the control of contractors. But where possible, we do allocate any spare resource and time to these policies.
That's great, Kim. Thank you very much. That's great news. Do we have any further questions? Don't see any comments. Don't see any either. Members, happy to take on board the recommendation for item 13. Thank you. Before we move on, if there's any officers present who don't have any more work in the current or the future items even, please feel free to leave, but you're more than happy to stay should you wish to do so. We now move on to item 14, which is the risks on mainstream schools. And Lisa Maria, I will ask you to present to this. Lisa Maria.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with information about the management and overview of risks ED 004 and ED 005 related to physical or verbal incidents towards staff in mainstream and additional support needs schools. Section D2 of the report sets out the details of the 2 identified high risks. Regular monitoring and review takes place at the monthly Education SMT meeting, and the risks are also standing items on the Education Health and Safety Committee meeting with trade unions. Both of these forums provide regular opportunity to engage and act on all statistics around incident details, recording, investigation, trends, and to be responsive to the support required across the service. For both risks, there are a number of mitigating measures in place which are outlined through our Positive Relationships policy, the professional learning offer around positive approaches to behaviour and safer de-escalation, and reinforced through the de-escalation training modules undertaken by all school-based staff. In addition, the service continues to focus on raising awareness for staff on how to deal with and report physical or verbal incidents in SFIRA, with refreshed annual guidance and a recently devised poster to remind all staff of the importance of reporting incidents. As mentioned earlier, individual pupil response plans are also in place to support young people with identified needs, and they aim to reduce the risk and impact. The use of the Young Persons Incident Form allows for targeted, bespoke support when incidents occur. To conclude, the service has robust risk management processes in place with the aim of reducing incidents and risks for children, young people and staff. Thank you, Chair. The committee is invited to note the report, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Lisa Maria, thank you very much. I know we have had a question from earlier on during the health and safety risk. I think it was from yourself, Linda. Sorry, Pauline, beg your pardon. So I don't know if you should come back and ask that now. Beg your pardon.
It was you actually did respond to part of it through another question, and that was really just to see if what mitigations were being put in place to protect, identify the perpetrators, protect the pupils, and that kind of thing. And I think what you've provided in this report here shows you that you are tackling proactively the two highest areas of concerns, which is good to know, because I do appreciate that it can take time to bring the policy together and then actually to get it implemented and things like that. So thank you.
Lisa, a couple from me. One is, when you put the plans in place, how often are they reviewed or how often are they altered with regards to make sure that they are fit for purpose, especially for individual circumstances?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that these things are reviewed in different timescales depending on the settings. So in schools, our staff are reviewing incidents that occur. They're reviewing the plans in place regularly as part of their school improvement plans, as part of the risk management processes. But then at service level, we are responding to those incidents and the plans weekly, monthly, and also on a termly basis as well. Given the numbers of young people involved across all of our settings, we do have to be very responsive and reactive when those incidents and situations occur. So there are lots of timescales and lots of opportunities to review the plans in place.
Okay, that's great. And I don't know if you've ever done this, Lisa, and by all means others come in if they wish. How are we in comparison to other council areas of similar size or similar pupil numbers with regards to incidents and the reporting of them? How's the comparison, do we know?
Tim and I actually were talking about this just earlier. I think what we tend to do is really focus on our statistics across our own local authority. Each local authority varies in terms of its size, in terms of its context and the demographics, of course, as well. So for us, the focus is really identifying trends or patterns within our own local authority and making sure that we're addressing those things there. But we do work collaboratively with other local authorities as well to get an understanding of, I suppose, the responsive plans that are put in place around that. We have a working party just now with 4 other local authorities where our officers are working around the procedures for reporting incidents to simplify processes around there. And I think nationally we're very aware that incidents, particularly physical and verbal, are an increasing challenge across Scotland. Kim, I don't know if there's something that you would like to come in if the Chair is happy for you to do so.
Absolutely.
About that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As explained, it's something that we speak about regularly through our health and safety networks that we have with other health and safety teams. As Lisa Marie has explained, we are looking at particularly what we report and how we report, looking to try and get some consistency throughout other local authorities in terms of particularly the people that we share our health and safety system with as well. So yeah, it's something that nationally as well through our health and safety networks in terms of violence and aggression in schools that has been raised as a concern.
And can I presume the Scottish Government collate national figures anyway? I presume they do with regards to education.
Yes, and there has been, Chair, the publication of the Joint Action Plan that produces national guidance in terms of schools and local authorities tackling the relationships and behaviour agenda in Scottish schools. So we do report our statistics, particularly around things like exclusion that were asked earlier, and obviously continue to track that year upon year and across Scotland as well.
Listen, thank you very much. Linda, I believe you wish to come in, yeah?
Thank you. Kim, can you tell me on ED004, on the matrix at the bottom, why is the likelihood assessed as lower now than it was before? It was 15, now it's down to 12. Is that because I'm probably answering the question and I probably know the answer, but if you could just advise.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think a direct result of the work that has been done in terms of the national action plan that I spoke about, our local authority response. We have our new positive relationships policy. We're rolling out a series of professional learning opportunities and mandatory training for all school-based staff to make sure staff are equipped when incidents occur, particularly those challenging incidents that can take place in classrooms. And then also at school level as well, the school ask is that each establishment create their own positive relationships policy in collaboration with staff, with parents and carers, and with children and young people. And that helps us to develop that consistency of approach, the shared understanding, and ultimately make sure that we're getting the learning experiences right for our young people in order to create that safe and positive environment for children, young people and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz Mayor. Do we have any further questions? Do we have any comments? Members happy to agree the recommendation on item 14. Thank you very much. We move to item 15, which is a strategic risk of failure to deliver annual revenue budget. And I'll hand over to Alistair Black to present. Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. Failure to deliver the annual budget for the current financial year is currently assessed as medium, so that's a likelihood score of 2. An impact score of 4. Our approach remains robust. The balanced annual revenue budget and 3-year financial strategy were approved in February 25. That's supported by comprehensive financial regulations and a proactive risk-based monitoring framework. We undertake regular budget monitoring at months 4, 6 and 9 to ensure early identification of pressures and updated reporting to Council Executive. External auditors have confirmed that we have sound, medium and long-term financial planning in place. Key challenges include inflationary pressures, constrained grant funding and demographic changes, all of which increase demand while resources remain tight. To mitigate these, heads of service are required to control expenditure to deliver approved savings, with particular focus on those rated amber, and to preserve underspends to support the wider financial position. We undertake horizon scanning and quarterly reporting, keeping assumptions under review and informing strategic decision making. In summary, while financial risks remain significant, the Council's established controls and governance processes aim to ensure that we deliver the revenue budget within available resources and support our progress towards financial sustainability going forward. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Alistair, thank you very much for the report. Do we have any questions? Alistair, one from me. What impact is it having on your service with the budgets being delayed this year, or I think we're moving to later this week before the initial idea will be on figures? What sort of impact is that having on your service to be able to deliver for the next financial year?
So the key challenge from that, normally you would have the settlement prior to Christmas, so it would allow for understanding of the numbers and development of the plans over the course of December and into January, February. The purpose of this financial year, given that that's what this report is focused on, so the 25-26 position, I suppose it's got less of an impact on this particular risk. It will be important for us. We need to make assumptions on financial flexibility between years, so it's helpful with regards to that. So that's clearly something that we'll understand later in the year than before. But the main impact from the lateness is the impact on the planning for future financial years. As a separate strategic risk, which is covered separately in the report, but clearly the two are very closely aligned.
Yeah, thank you for that. Do we have any further questions? Any comments? Committee? Sorry, Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. Alistair, I just wanted to thank you for bringing this report to Council today, bearing in mind you're having to manage budgets in a very, very difficult climate, and because of the late budget from the UK government, it's going to make it much tighter for us to get things together and whatever, and really just to take note that it is a difficult job when we're trying to manage statutory against non-statutory services in this difficult climate. and that we also have to try and make best use of any underspends in subsequent years to try and mitigate some of the unbudgeted pressures and emergency incidents that do come our way. So, I just wanted to thank you for bringing this report to us today, just to give us that up-to-date position of where we are before we get to crunch time for the end of February.
Thank you, Pauline. Any further comments? See any committee happy to take on board the recommendation on agenda item 15? Thank you. Move to item 16, which is the external audit reports, and I'll hand to Leslie Montague. Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. The Council's Auditor's Annual Report for 2024-25 was considered by full Council on 23rd September 2025 when the audited accounts were approved for signature. Alongside the audit report was the Auditor's Best Value Thematic Review, which is part of the Account Commission's approach to best value auditing and reporting. There are hyperlinks to the report in Part F of this report. As is long-standing practice, a part of the Auditor's work relating to this committee's own remit are reported today for further consideration and scrutiny. The Annual Audit Report deals first with the audit of the Council's financial statements, financial management and financial sustainability. It then deals with a wider scope audit, which is a part relevant to this committee's remit. It concludes with an action plan agreed with officers and approved by Council on 23rd September as detailed at Part D6 of the report. The key parts of the wider scope audit are digested in Parts D.2 to D4 of the report. Best Value Thematic Review dealt with service transformation and involved consideration of how the Council is redesigning services to maintain outcomes and deliver services more efficiently. Thematic reviews are annual requirements of the Best Value Audit of Councils, and the finding of the Thematic Review Report are summarised in Part D5. Consideration of Audit Scotland's 2 annual reports will assist the committee in its scrutiny and monitoring of the Council's governance and risk arrangements. The committee is asked to approve the recommendations of the report. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Leslie, thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions? I don't see any comments. Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. Just again to say to Leslie, thank you for bringing this report to Council today. It's been interesting to see the comments made about partnership working and community engagement. We have seen in the last 12 to 18 months how it is important to get this right and to learn from previous feedback. If I think about the consultations around the community centres, which there was a lot of public feedback around, which wasn't at all positive, and in respect of the impact of integrated impact assessments, we need to be particularly open and accountable in respect of these and make sure that our public are fully aware that they have been carried out, that they have been completed, and to see the information around them, because again, that was something that came out of the feedback from the community centres process. So it's really, really good to see that noted in this paper today. Thank you.
Pauline, thank you. And I'd just like to commend Leslie and all involved with the audit reports. I know it takes a lot of work to get these produced. So thank you to all. Committee happy to take on board the recommendations on item 16. We move to item 17, which is the work plan. I'll say every meeting, please do, and I'm sure committee members are happy to see that some of their requests are now included within the coming up work plan for future meetings. If anyone has any questions or comments, please raise them now, but by all means contact either myself or Leslie Montague after the meeting as well, should you wish to do so. Do we have any questions or comments on the work plan? I don't see any, so thank you very much. We now move into private session.